All right, all right. Glenn Stein here, broker owner, Realty Executives in the Villages. It's Friday. It is, I believe it's June 5th. I think that's what we're looking at. And I'm giving you a weekly update as to what's going on in the Villages. And obviously, we've gone through a lot of stuff over the last couple of months, to say the least. And of course, there's more stuff that's going on with the riots. The good news is we don't see any of that here, so that's a big plus. Very few um, uh, issues with the coronavirus. There have been a handful. Of course, we've had our share just like everybody else, but things are pretty much open. I was at a restaurant today, and I think things are not full force ahead, but certainly there are things to do and things are happening. So that's good news as long as people are being safe for sure. So a little bit of a recap of the last, 6 to 8 weeks ago when we were looking at what was going on in the real estate market and what was the impact of the real estate market with the coronavirus. We're looking at the end of March. It was pretty much when things started happening. So we're almost completely on shutdown. Real estate was still deemed essential. We saw probably an 80% drop off in showings and activity starting with March and definitely all the way through April. Soft openings, phase one type of openings in May, and been tracking pretty consistently ever since to see what would be the impact of coronavirus here in the Villages, Florida. And the numbers I've been giving you are MLS statistics. I've been giving you numbers on active new properties are coming on the marketplace, new listings, properties that are being reduced in price, properties that are going under contract, properties that are closing, all of that. And what we pretty much predicted is kind of happening, maybe a little bit slower than maybe anticipated, but still there's some things happening. So the first thing that we're seeing is that we saw a big drop off with properties that were being shown, drop off in closings starting in March. And it was kind of a V-shaped type of recovery. So in other words, really sharp drop off during this time period. And then we're starting to see a sharp increase, semi-sharp increase in showings, starting with about 3-4 weeks ago in May. And also we've seen some increase in activity with not only showings, but properties under contract. And I think now what we're starting to see is a little bit of a leveling off on, and maybe a little bit of the maybe typical summer marketplace, where a little bit of normalcy and a little bit of leveling off with properties going under contract. And I'll give you an example. So the first thing I want to talk about are the properties that came on the market, the new properties on the marketplace, new listings. 37 new listings on the market this week, last 7 days, essentially the beginning first week of June. The last week of May, we saw the same number. So we saw 37 new properties come on the market. So a little bit of leveling off, which not necessarily a bad thing, by the way, because we saw so many properties, a flood of properties coming on the marketplace, and the demand couldn't handle it, then that would be, there might be a pricing issue. We're still seeing maybe a slight leveling off on price reductions, a big jump up last week, end of May. We saw a jump up of 43 properties that got price reductions. Prior week saw somewhere in the mid 20s, but big jump up last week, and a slight drop off this week of 37 price reductions for the first week of June. Still higher than what we saw the first couple of weeks of May, but definitely we're keeping an eye on that to see what that means really. That means people are selling or wanting to get their property sold, so they're or maybe they're overpricing their homes to begin with. So that could be it. But we're going to pay close attention to that as the weeks move forward. So price reductions still at a same number as new listings on the marketplace, right? 37 new listings, 37 price reductions this week. We saw 22 properties get closed or sold properties, right? They actually closed. Now, the prior week we saw 20, which pretty much is about the same number, right? 20 and 22 closed properties this week. Essentially what that means is that, which is a low number, by the way, actually really low number. We saw, if you take, for example, April numbers. April was a really strong closing month because that's basically the lagging measure connected to the leading measure of showings in March and then April. We still had some showings in March, so April closings were pretty strong. May closings were pretty light, definitely a lot less than April because April showings were really, really light. Obviously 80% drop off, so that means May closings are light. And then May showings were also relatively light, kind of hit or miss, kind of spotty. So the first part of June, what we're seeing is really a light closing week of June. Not terribly surprising. First week of the month is usually the lightest of all the weeks, but also on top of it, it's going back to April, end of April, beginning of May showings, and then houses going to contract were light during that time period. So it's really to be expected that we would see a real drop off in closings in June. Not unlike what we're seeing with unemployment. Unemployment in May, the report came out today and showed that unemployment was obviously still in the 13s, an improvement. I think it was in the 14s in April. So an improvement in unemployment nationwide, but still very high. But then once again, what we're looking at is an indicator that's the lagging indicator for the numbers back in April and May. Same thing that we're seeing here with April and April-May showings and April-May under contracts now being represented as June closings, first week of June, really light. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. If you guys have questions about this, just connect with me, 352-572-3796, 352-572-3796. Also, you can visit us on our website, buysellthevillages.com. For the latest properties, we're doing Caravan and the latest properties on Wednesday morning. So don't forget to watch that. The other thing I want to mention are the pending properties, the properties that are getting a response. They're getting showings. They're priced right, and people are feeling like, okay, this property is priced well enough for me to put an offer. And then the buyer and seller are coming together and putting the property under contract. Pending properties is what we call it in the business. 24 pending properties this week. 34 was the week prior. The end of May, we saw 34 properties go under contract, 24 properties in the beginning of June. Basically, a little bit of a drop off there. So we're going to pay attention to that. So all in all, I think the market is obviously a lot better than what it was 30 to 45 days ago, without a doubt. No doubt about it. We're seeing some fluctuations, a little bit of wavering. It's going to be interesting to see what we see in the next 4 to 8 weeks. It's going to be a big indicator. Still expecting strong indications are telling me, I just have this feeling based on the showings and the number of calls we're getting for people that want to look at property, that looks like that these numbers will be increasing, especially the sold and the pendings. I think are going to go up, and maybe I'm anticipating very much a market similar to what we saw pre-COVID back in January and February, okay, and beginning of March. It's going to be interesting to see. But the reality is, we're not making up numbers. I don't want to tell you it's good news, bad news. It's just different news. News that's just based in reality. So come to your own conclusions for sure. So once again, if you have any questions about this, feel free to connect with me. My name is Glenn Stein, Realty Executives in the Villages community in Florida. And my number is 352-572-3796. Also, our website is buysellthevillages.com. Okay, take care.